evening and welcome to the first of what may be many First Things First conversations. Tonight, we're going to set the internet on fire with a conversation topic we're all very passionate about, the truth about hazing. But first, I want to take a few minutes to recognize our international presidents. From your left to right, National President of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Elsa Cook Holmes. International President of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, Rashida Liberty. International President of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Dr. Stacy N.C. Grant. And International President of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Danette Anthony Reed. Now I want to take the next couple of minutes, y'all, and introduce our extraordinary panel of first vice presidents. Our first panelist has served as the chair of the International Membership Committee from 2010 to 2014, providing leadership to her sorority, resulting in over 17,000 members reactivating their membership. She served as the Deputy Director of Government Affairs for the 60th Mayor of Atlanta, Ms. Keisha Lance Bottoms, from 2018 to 2022. She is the first African-American female to be appointed as the city's zoning administrator. She's a life member, legacy, and Silver Star, and has more than 35 years in service to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Please welcome International First Vice President, Charletta Wilson-Jacks. Our next panelist, she chairs the Scholarship and Standards Committee for her organization, overseeing the establishment of chapters, orienting and providing ongoing training for regional directors, regional representatives, assisting with the development and implementation of reclamation programs. She has served 17 consecutive years on the National Executive Board, where she's chaired the Program Planning and Development Committee and co-chaired the Leadership Academy. She's a retired educational administrator, a Golden Life member, and has more than 50 years in service to Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Please welcome National First Vice President, Pamela Smith. All right, it just keeps getting better. Our next panelist has served her organization as the first National Director of Risk Management, creating their first formalized set of risk management policies and a formal risk management training program, which is now a certification program that is highly regarded by the organization's insurance carrier and campus professionals. She is an attorney and corporate governance professional. She was the first African-American female elected as an officer of Southern New Jersey's gas utility. She's a Diamond Life member and Centennial Founders Society member with now more than 36 years in service to Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Please welcome International First Vice President, Gina Merritt Epps, Esquire. And last, but certainly not least, our final panelist is responsible for all things membership, including intake, training, member recognition, and disciplinary. She has served in several leadership positions in her organization on the local, regional, and international level, to include serving as the undergraduate chapter coordinator. This has certainly provided her firsthand knowledge and experience in working with risk management, training members on the sorority policies and procedures, collaborating with external partners, and reviewing disciplinary action reports of members and chapters. She is a Ruby, a life member, and has more than 28 years in service to Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. Please welcome International Vice President, Marika Harris. All right, ladies. Well, we have a short amount of time this evening to kind of peel the layers back on this hazing issue that we're going to be talking about that's impacting each of your organizations, our communities at large, and quite frankly, seems to be dimming the light on the purpose behind each of our existence. But before we jump into conversation, can we all agree perhaps on the shared understanding of what hazing really is? Punishment, harassment, humiliation, painful aspects of initiation, and any action taken or situation created maybe that contributes a risk of potential injury, mental harm, or degradation. Can we agree that that's really the definition of hazing?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, good. So given this
Yes.
definition, Gina, I'd like to kind of start our conversation here and talk a little bit about some of the ways hazing may be showing up across your organization in Zeta.
Thank you for that definition. I definitely agree. First, of course, we have to acknowledge the harm to the individual members of our society, irrespective of our organization. But let me say this: I don't think everyone appreciates the amount of time and human resources that it takes to address these allegations when they come in, and how much it distracts away from our mission. We have staff that we pay, and then volunteers that have to staff the investigation process all the way through the appeals. You don't know how much impacts our growth, those who won't join or won't stay active. And so we have to reclaim and retain. And as we all see on social media, we're starting to see more people talk about renouncements. And I'm sure that the allegations of hazing definitely show up in people who no longer want to be part of our organization. It's difficult to charter chapters, to reactivate chapters. You have universities who are eliminating Greek letter organizations. The harm to our reputation is just, it's very difficult to explain. And as we look at the legal cases and our insurance and the new theories of liability, but let me just talk a little bit about how one act of hazing can impact our ability to get partnerships and sponsorships. We're going to these organizations saying that we're the best and the brightest. Yet we have criminal activity within our organizations, the way it's depicted on the media, and I really think that it does also show itself within our organizations. We're saying to people, what you have done is not enough. And if you notice, we also treat our own members that way. What you did is not enough. And so we see hazing after the intake process. And it also spills into how we treat our leaders. I think there's a lot of times there's a lot of hazing of our leaders. What we do is not enough, the way that we're criticized about things. So it shows up, before the process within our organization, but I really want to emphasize the amount of human resource and distraction that it takes away from our missions that our founders, put there for us.
Yeah, I like how you worded all of that. And ladies, I'm certain that each of you also see hazing rearing its ugly head in your respective organizations as well. But Pam, what about for you? What are you seeing within Delta and how it's showing up there?
Thank you. Yes, hazing is showing up in different ways. In fact, there's like a spectrum of hazing. Hazing going from intimidation to harassment to the violent. And I think most of our people think of hazing as violence, and it's not only that. In fact, when you think about intimidation, most of our people think this is meaningless or harmless, but it's still hazing. Things like call me every day at a certain time. Things like clean my apartment or come and clean out my car. Also, social isolating. Don't talk to anybody else. Don't see anybody else during this period of time. Or they take someone's laptop or take their cell phone, their clothes. That is hazing. And so many people think that's not hazing. That's meaningless. That's harmless. That's fun. No, it's not. It's hazing. And then the middle kind of way of hazing, where you're dealing with harassment that kind of causes people stress and anguish. They pretty much people do understand that when someone's doing verbal abuse, they understand that that's hazing, but they still don't think it's as bad as the violence. Sleep deprivation, excuse me, as well as just things like asking for rights or using someone's dining car as hazing. And I think we got to get the full definition and many examples so people truly understand.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with all of what you just shared, and I am certain that we all have those same sentiments. Charlotta, what about for you? What are you seeing across AKA as it relates to how hazing is showing up in your organization?
Cammie. The one thing I can say starting off is that hazing is not unique. And we've heard that from our other vice presidents that it is very pervasive in those organizations as well. But we find hazing showing up in the culture. And I know our younger generation now are talking about for the culture, but it's not for the culture. This hazing, it goes against our policies of respect. It goes against our mission. It goes against our core values. But primarily, we see it showing up in our member experiences, as some of my vice presidents have said, particularly in the new experience. When someone is interested in our organization, they have the feeling that they have to be subjective to certain standards in order to be made by some made up regulations, as opposed to understanding who we are and whose we are. And then we also find it showing up in member sustainability. Sister Gina talked about renouncements. Yes, I am sure that hazing is at the bottom of that. Those who were subjected to that are those who actually conducted some of the hazing. So sustainability of our members is being challenged by hazing. And I will also say, in existing as a member, for example, on some campuses, if you were not initiated in a chapter and you transfer to a chapter, then you are not welcome. And literally you are hazed, or you are prevented from participating in homecoming activities or other things. And these things are becoming more prevalent. So, and that's a form of hazing. That's isolation. So we have to understand that none of our founders participated in hazing. We were founded on principles of sisterhood, principles of service. And if we are going to be here and represent those values now, for all of us over 100 years we have existed, we have to understand that hazing is not for the culture of any of our organizations.
I like that. I like that. I certainly agree with that sentiment and what each of you have expressed. Marika, what about with you and what you've seen across Sigma Gamma Rho?
Yes, thank you. I find it very interesting that we're having this conversation, because over 30 years ago, our collective group decided that we were not going to stand for pledging and hazing within our organization. So here we are in 2023 having these same conversations again. So it's quite telling of the work that we did not do from 1990 until now. But for Sigma Gamma Rho, it shows up, as Gina has said, when people reach out to our international corporate headquarters and report concerns about possible hazing and pledging. What's very serious to me is when parents contact us, contact our headquarters, contact our regional leadership team to express concerns about their child that they sent to school participating in illegal activities, activities that may harm them, that are going to prevent them from graduating, especially with our legacies. It's very concerning. It's also embarrassing when it shows up when the college and universities reach out and contact us to talk about the concerns that they have. We're on their respective campus, and we're supposed to be helping them sustain their students that are coming to their campuses. But when we get those calls, it's quite concerning. As a couple already said, it shows up when we're working to reclaim members of our organization. We're reaching out to them, asking them to return to the sisterhood, and yet they're sharing their experiences of being hazed, of being abused within their respective process. And last but not least, we're seeing an increase in the renouncements, where members are wanting to disconnect and disengage with the sisterhood because of that same experience. So it's showing up, and it's not showing up in positive ways.
Seems as I listen to each of you all speak about this particular issue, that it's showing up in some of the same ways amongst all of your organizations. And we have to have ways of kind of dealing with this issue. And so I kind of want to stay right here with you, Marika, and just, maybe talk about some of the strategies. What strategies, is Sigma Gamma Rho working on and implementing to affect change around the prevention of hazing?
Yep, thank you. For us, our goal was really to protect and preserve our organization. We're still celebrating 100 years of service, and we want to ensure that we are around for 100 plus more years. Training and education, telling our members, like talking about what hazing is, being transparent about it, what it looks like, the impact on hazing, how it shows up on campuses, how it could show up in a respective membership intake process. We take a deep dive in looking at our risk management policies, making sure that we review them and update them annually. We also made sure that we added the hazing hotline to our national website to provide another resource for interested women or sorors to reach out and contact us to let us know that something has happened or there's something that potentially is happening. Our legal team, we send them to the Fraternal Law Conference to make sure that they are updated with all of the current legal issues and trends that are out here so that we can kind of get ahead of it and know what to prepare for our upcoming intake season. So we try to make sure we educate our members.
Okay, sounds good. I like that. I like education. Gina, what about you? Are there strategies that Zeta is working on implementing to, sort of do the same thing, affects change around the prevention of hazing?
For me, I think it's very important as tonight's event, I hope demonstrates is that we need to stop tiptoeing around the issue. It's criminal behavior. And, for those of us that do criminal background checks before we bring people into the organization, and then we turn around and don't have that supposed zero tolerance against what, again, is criminal and sometimes savage behavior. And so I think that I know that I'm very proud of our Finding Women Don't Haze team that, came up with this event. Glad to share it with everyone. But until we stop, half talking about it, half enforcing it, and call it what it is, criminal behavior by people who are supposed to be the best and the brightest in our society. I think what was important for me for tonight was to make sure that this was education beyond our organizations, to invite the public so that the community understands our stance. And I hope that everybody appreciates the unity here tonight. This is not just about one organization. And, borrowing from Rashid Cromwell from Harbor Institute, you cannot dismantle what you don't understand. So the education that Marika talked about how pledging began, how maybe our founders did not go through a pledge process, how that evolved into hazing, some of the hazing of students at universities, it's very important. And so, we are looking at partnerships with the organizations like Harbor Institute, or for our Finding Women Don't Haze initiative. It's not just an international committee. There's a rep at each region, and we push it down, of course, to our chapter and our state levels. And as Marika indicated, your risk management policies, this is beyond National Hazing Prevention Week. And for us, and for me in particular, it is personal. And until we stop acting like it's not an issue and pull the blanket off of the issue and talk about the criminal behavior, we're going to impact the very sustainability of our organizations.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And I really want to just kind of go back to, Marika, you had mentioned one of the strategies is that hotline. I really like that idea as a strategy. But Pam, what about for Delta? Are there strategies being implemented to affect change in this same area?
Reimagine our membership intake program. To some of the hallmarks are education. We wanted to educate and educate and educate about how should you manage? What is a whistleblower? How can you become a whistleblower? Are you safe as a whistleblower, et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to be transparent about what does it mean to become a member of the sorority. And so we put something on our website specifically saying how to become a member. And it was for students, for parents, for anyone who wanted to know more information about becoming a. And that again, we also putting much, see something, say something. And I believe that the more you repeat things, maybe they think take it, I gotta say something. So we really try repetition as well. One other thing that we've tried is we have a teach program that was created by our undergraduate and university affairs task. This program, teach actually stands for Title IX hazing, and it's to prevent hazing because it teaches them not only about hazing and sexual assault and all that, but the piece I like is about stand in strategies. What strategies can you use when you see something? And I think it's effective in that way. I would say that we are also trying to do more training of advisors so that they're very much aware of what's going on and what's the latest trends that we see so that they can then implement those kinds of things with the knowledge of what's happening. Finally, the last thing I would say is we also have contracts that are signed by the sorors about anti-hazing and about those wishing to be sorors. And the contract says, I will not haze and I will not allow myself to be hazed. So we really are trying a number of strategies, as everybody is.
It seems like it. Yeah, I like all of the strategies that I've heard from each of you. And it seems there's some even shared pollination, if you will. So given the seriousness of this issue that we're talking about, I'm certain that each of your organizations has anti-hazing policies, because I've heard a couple of you mention that. But policies, you can agree, are just documents unused if we aren't sharing that information out, right? So I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about how we're disseminating that information to the broader communities. Charlotta, what measures does AKA have in place to communicate its anti-hazing policy? You're on mute.
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Let me start out by saying that all of us, each one of us has experienced, I know, game-changing incidents that have caused us to put in place our anti-hazing policy. So collectively, we're all on board with that. But I firmly believe that in order to communicate, in order to educate, you have to communicate, and we have to over-communicate. First and foremost, Alpha Kappa Alpha has put on its official webpage our anti-hazing policy so that those who are interested in becoming a member of our organization or those who are currently members of our organization are aware of where we stand on our zero tolerance hazing policy. And we have defined hazing. We have also given examples of unlawful behavior so that we take it down to the granular level so someone is not mistaken that pre-pledging or financial hazing or financial abuse is a part of hazing. The other thing that we do is that we have conferences, as we all do, and we invest a lot of time in educating our members on what that looks like, what impact it is to our traditions, what impact it is to the perpetuity of our organizations. And those workshops are held as members come in the organization, as members stay in the organization, and as they try to transition to higher levels. Because our leaders have to also understand that their position and their conversation on the zero tolerance of hazing will translate and trickle down to those of us who are working on the ground. I would also say that it's important that we take advantage of social media. It's our world today. And so many of our members really don't read books. They don't read the manuals. The first thing they do is they go to the internet. They go to the social media page. So they believe everything sometimes is on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So we have gotten to, show how these things impact the perpetuity of our organizations. We say these pearls don't haze. Well, all of us are wearing pearls tonight. And our pearls cannot shine if we don't communicate our anti-hazing policy, and how important it is for us to continue to belong, because we all know that there are people in this society who are trying to dismiss us, dismiss our history, even on the campuses where we are serving our communities. So it's important that we educate, and overeducate.
I agree. I agree. And I like the fact that there is that zero tolerance in your policy. And I kind of like to just see across the board, maybe Marika and Pam, maybe you can follow on top of Marika, but what measures do you all have in place to communicate your anti-hazing policy? And I'll start with you, Marika.
Yes. As Soar Charlotta has said, training, educate. For us, I like for us to have an all hands on deck approach from our regional leadership team to our regional legal advisors. They are presenting information about risk management at all of our area meetings, our conferences. We also have included our regional membership team and our area coordinators and state directors for them to also be actively a part in making sure that there are no hazing or pledging activities going on. We do a quality check for all of our membership intake processes where we just show up. You're never going to know. We pop up. We want to see what's going on. We want to make sure you're following the curriculum that's outlined in our policy. So that has been helpful for us to kind of stop things if we notice something is going on. We also have the interested women. They have to read and sign our terms and condition. If you're under 21, we send it to your parents as well, because we want them to know what's going on and what you're about to participate in. We want them to know in advance. We also teach them. We have a workshop for them to learn about our hazing policies. We participate in Hazing Prevention Week. We want to make sure our undergraduates are involved in this process as well, to include a mental health component, because hazing is more than just the physical. It's the mental health issue that really has a greater impact in this hazing problem.
Yeah, I agree. And I like that whole mental approach, because it does impact people's mental and behavioral psyches. Pam, what about for you? Anything that you want to add on to that discussion as it relates to anti-hazing policies and what you all have? You're on mute.
Anti-hazing policy.
You're on mute. Pam, it still seems like you're on mute.
I can't. Am I still?
No, ma'am. Technology works when it works, and when it doesn't, it doesn't. And now we can hear you. We can hear you.
Oh, now you can hear. Okay, something going
Yes,
in and
ma'am.
out. But okay, great. Let me say that on our website, we have our code of conduct. It's right there for read to see exactly what kinds of sanctions are given for what kind of behavior. We also have a Delta internal development workshop on the code of conduct. We, everywhere we can, we put that code of conduct at the rush party, at the orientation. I mean, every place possible, both for candidates and for we have the information that's on the site. We have video to have at home. Every sort of gives specific examples and details about what hazing looks like. So anybody who's in question can see examples of it. We, again, anti-hazing contracts. The other thing, we do belong to the anti-hazing prevention, the Hazing Prevention Network. And that's
Okay.
a network that allows anyone to report as a whistleblower. And it is being used. And so that's a good thing. And we do communicate that you call that network, no one will ever know who you are, but they will get your report. So we try a
Good.
number of things to just get the information out.
Yeah. I know one of your roles, Pam, in your organization is kind of serving as the chair of the Scholarship and Standards Committee, kind of overseeing the establishment of chapters within Delta. As we're coming off the heels, and I just thought about this question. You know, Marika brought up the social and mental aspects, as well as Gina. But coming off the heels of the pandemic, I'm just curious, what impacts do you believe the pandemic has had on hazing for new sorors as we're talking about that community?
Oh, I think it has had a negative effect on our sorors. I'll tell you a number. Here's one. The sorors who went through the virtual process and have been given the title of digital deltas or vert deltas. That's not a label. And so what those sorors are feeling is that their process was legitimate, and that they are, in some ways, they were not made the right way. So what they have done, some of them have allowed themselves to be hazed after they become sorors, so they can really prove that they can, be good sorors. Another thing is that those sorors, the sorors made who did intake during the pandemic, they are seeking to prove that they can make good sorors. So they are inventing some ways to haze that they are good sorors, that they're strong, that they can make others. And that is really a problem, because what happens is, because they feel lesser, they're using their power, and then it's a vicious, and it just continues. And then the last thing I would say about it is that during hazing, during the pandemic, so many of our young people, especially, had difficulty connecting. And so we see that there are sorors who have difficulty connecting as a part of the sorority. They were isolated. They really did not know their line sisters. And so it's playing itself out in our sorority now.
Yeah. And I can agree with that. And I'm sure, just kind of thinking about that last comment you made, it brings me to Marika, just because of the nature of the pandemic period, with your studies in the field of psychology and social work, this new trend that we're seeing has to be alarming for you as well. Are there impacts that you believe the pandemic has had on hazing for newer sorors also?
As Pam was talking, I was like, is that me? Because the same thing that is, that she has shared about Delta Sigma Theta applies to Sigma Gamma Rho as well. And our sorors that came in through the pandemic, they've been labeled as the pandemic poodles. So everything as far as wanting to be connected, to be involved, the same sentiment. I was like, she's taking the words right out of my mouth. For us, we saw a decrease in some of the physical claims, but that didn't mean it didn't happen. It's just been underreported. We saw some of the virtual hazing, like the cyberbullying going on with some of the chapters. And then what was really concerning is that, all of us had COVID policies. We're finding that people were intentionally violating those policies to go out into communities and participate in illegal activities. So that didn't really stop anything. We thought maybe it would get, some type of hold on it. It would settle some people down, but they're going to do it regardless, whether it's in person or virtual, we found.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And I kind of want to just stay right here for a few more minutes on this issue of the pandemic, because we are just coming off the heels of it. And it has just, had a significant impact in all of our lives. But just wondering, Pam, are there some strategies that you would recommend we use as it relates to ameliorating the impact of the pandemic on hazing new sorors?
I think we may have lost Pam. She hopefully will be coming back in.
Well, maybe we can just go on while we wait on her. Gina, just being a trustee for the Atlanta Care Health System, and maybe even having an understanding of the behavioral impacts, are there some strategies that you could potentially recommend for us to use in terms of ameliorating the impact of the pandemic on hazing new sorors?
Definitely. I think, we've all heard the names now, that were given to our sorors, digital deltas, pandemic poodles. I've heard Zoom Zetas. I think that has to stop. We're all
Yeah.
members. When I teach risk management and when the team does risk management, the first thing that we do is we go through stats of hazing during the pandemic to let people know that it's real, that, like Marika said, it didn't go away. But, I really want to talk about the fact that we all need to do a better job with onboarding, whether it's post pandemic or not. Some of us, we go through the process, we bring people in. And so we're trying to be more intentional, however, about teaching people how to be members of our organization. And we have to be even more intentional with that intentional integration because of the pandemic piece. And so, again, and continuing with that exclusion. Now, with the pandemic, you really aren't enough. You really haven't done enough, to the point where, as people said, they're volunteering to go through some type of process that is really harmful physically as well as to people's psyche. And so when we do our MIP certification, one of the things that we emphasize is that when you induct people into our organization, they are now full members with all rights and privileges. And that really has to be brought home very poignantly with respect to those who were brought in through the pandemic. And for everyone, when it comes to, anti-pledging, anti-hazing, just please remember that we've always been anti-hazing organizations, that in 1990 we stopped the pledging, but we all need to stop the storytelling. That I was online for 1,920 days. Because my question is, are you active? What are you doing for the organization? And so we just do a lot of things in our organizations to separate ourselves from each other, and I don't understand the point of the separation. And then, of course, it spills over into the separation between the organizations. So we just have to be more intentional about the onboarding, worrying about how people came in, and just stop the name calling and the separation. And I came in this time and all of these things. Are you paying dues? Have you done community service? What are you doing about social action?
I can agree, and I see your sister VP snapping and giving you the thumbs up on that. That seems to be a statement that's resonating with all of you. And I see that Pam has come back in, and so Pam, I'll give you a couple of minutes here just to kind of close us out on the whole pandemic and share with us any strategies that you would recommend that we use as it relates to ameliorating the impact of the pandemic on hazing of new sorors. You're on mute, Pam. Okay.
I think we have to. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is just going in and out, so I'm not in control. But I think we have to reconnect our sorors.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think that we have to be an advocate for the bonding activities in their service projects. Try to figure out how they can bond together, because they didn't have that. There was social isolation. And one of the things that we've done is we have a Live Well program as a part of our physical and mental health thrust. And that Live Well program does deal with mental health. And we have Wellness Wednesdays, some of which are meant for collegiates, some of which are for everybody who will join, whether they're part of the sorority or not. And the whole idea is, let's uncover, like Gina said, the whole idea that mental health is a problem that is okay. It is okay to talk about it. It is okay to get help. And we've got to take the stigma away so that people will access the resources that can help them with what has happened over the pandemic. And I think we've got to uncover and make it okay to be able to say, I need help. I need someone to talk to. I think that would be a big deal in how we can assist others, because we really have to face some facts. There was social isolation. Our people struggling with stress, with depression, with anxiety, all of which were just accelerated during the pandemic. So I think we face some facts. We say it's okay to get help, and we help people. We take them to get help. And I think that will help to address.
Look, I think Charlotta is like chomping at the bits. You look like you want to respond to this question. So I'm just going to say, Charlotta,
Yes.
do you have anything else you want to add to this conversation?
Yes, I want to give a snap to my sister vice presidents as well. But I really think that we have to focus on what Sister Gina said, is that we have to be intentional about our membership. If I think back to when I chaired the International Membership Committee, the theme was membership matters. You matter. So if we pay attention to our sisters and let them know that they are important, that we do these refresher courses, make them understand why they became a member, or make them remember why they became a member, and really put that fire back in their hearts, that may help it. The other thing I want to add on, and Sorgina said this as well, is stop the storytelling. That's how it's showing up in chapter traditions. Chapters, stop the traditions, stop telling the story. Stop telling the story about your experience that doesn't meet with our current situation. And then I'm going to bring it home. For those of us who are legacies, mamas, grandmamas, you got to stop telling your story to your legacies as well, because your story is not the current story. Just pass on the vision, the history, the purpose. And that's enough for your legacy to know that they want to be a part by your actions, by your service, and by how you treat other people. And I'll end this with a personal story. I have a granddaughter who all my friends know I love. And I took her on a campus so she could experience Spelman College and a sisterhood. And she came back and she said they were so nice to her. But she said, Mimi, you know the most important thing? They were nice to each other. And that's what she walked away with. And that was the lesson of sisterhood that I wanted to share with her. And she got it that day. So we have to continue to tell the story of sisterhood with new members, with current members, and with people who just want to be like us.
Yeah, I agree. And let me tell you, you just seem so passionate about that. And as you talk about educating, you all definitely have some helpful strategies to consider. And I like the fact of using education as a strategy as well. Charlotta, you've been sought after to educate on a large scale in your community with engagement and impact in your field. And all too often, I think many ladies interested in our sororities consider hazing to be minor offenses, if you will. Can you help us out here and maybe share some myths and corresponding correcting facts where that's concerned?
Yes, certainly. And it goes back to, for the culture, it goes back to showing up, and it goes back to that storytelling. So this is a number one myth, that hazing is a painless act. It's just a part of the process. It's silly acts of fun. It doesn't matter. You have to go through it in order to be real, so you won't be paper. The fact is, hazing is abuse. And if you allow yourself to be abused in your professional world and in your personal world, then that's a statement that you need help. Hazing is not tolerated, because I go back to the fact that we were founded on the principles of sisterhood. Also, if you are not initiated via a certain process or within a certain time period or in person, that you are not official, that you're paper. Well, I'm here to tell you each one of us has a piece of paper that says that we are a member of our organization. So if it's being paper, then everybody in this organization and in all of these organizations, Divine Nine, we're all paper, because the paper signifies that we are an official member. So the fact of the matter is, it's abuse. It's abuse. And abuse is not necessary to serve, to be sisterly, or to be brotherly.
I agree. Marika, what about for you? Being responsible for membership intake, training, recognition, and even disciplinary actions within your organization. Are there some myths maybe that you can share with us, and then the corresponding correcting facts as well?
Yes, I have two. As I review disciplinary action a lot, they'll say if hazing is just physical, right? If you don't touch the person, it's not hazing. Well, it's more than that. There's a mental health component to it. You don't know what someone else's trauma was like before they came to this campus. You don't know what was going on in their family. You have no idea. And putting your hands on people, forcing them to do things, that impacts their psyche as well. You're going to create additional traumas for these women or these young men that come on this campus, and you can't even have the support, provide the support to them to lead them to additional counseling because you don't believe that that was hazing. The second one is very big for me too, is if they agree, then it's not hazing. Well, we all know as First Vice that there's laws throughout the United States that does not agree with that consent may be forced. It's the pressure related to it of you wanting to be connected, wanting to belong. So just because they agree to it, of course they're going to. They want to be a part of something that they think is greater. They want to be a part of something that we're saying we're sisters about. I know for me, even as a child, if I did something wrong, I didn't want my parents to pull out the belt or the switch or anything like that. And I find it very interesting that we lose that when we go to these college campuses, that you want to physically hit someone, or women are allowing other people to do that when they didn't even want to have it in their own childhood experience. So those are the two for me that I quite hear, that I hear a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you all have my wheels spinning with your responses. And I know Gina has already talked about some of those same things that you just mentioned. But Marika, I want to stay here for just a minute because, there's some things that I think can be done on college campuses, as it relates to eliminating and reducing hazing related matters. Particularly, it seems like despite all of our efforts being made towards educating the broader communities, we really seem to be falling short in that area with our undergraduates. And I think the audience would be interested in sort of hearing what some of the things are that we can do or that we are doing or planning to do with the colleges and universities in eliminating and reducing that risk.
Yes. So I know for Sigma Gamma Rho, and I'm sure we all do it because we all attend AFA, Association for Fraternity Advisors. But we invite our college partners to a webinar in the fall where we talk about our current policies and procedures. We share our contact information for our regional leadership team. Again, attending AFA, we want to make sure we go there so that we have that in-person experience with them, and that they're able to share the good, bad, and ugly about what our chapters are doing as well. We invite our college partners to participate, to provide trainings to our members, so that they can understand, especially for the advisors, so that they can understand the expectations from our advisor role and how we support and stay engaged and connected with our college partners. Our regional leadership team, they partner with our campus professionals as well. And then we have members who work in higher education. So we value their feedback so that they can share some of their experiences while working with our school boards on their campus.
Nice, nice. So, being the first of what was to come by way of other female organizations with similar intents, Charlotte, I'm just wondering, what about for AKA? How are you all partnering with colleges and universities to eliminate and reduce hazing related matters?
Well, thank you so much again, Cami. First of all, I just want to be sure that all of the audience understands that we are only on the campuses and universities, the campus of the colleges and universities at their pleasure. They determine whether we exist there. So it's important that we work in accord with their policies and we work with their programs. Every undergraduate chapter in Alpha Kappa Alpha has an advising graduate chapter. And together they make an intentional effort to make sure that they understand those officials who are in the Greek Life organization. We also have on-campus advisors or members who serve in those capacities. We want to make sure that even if they are not a member of a chapter, that they understand the policies and principles of Alpha Kappa Alpha, because they're there and they're our eyes and our ears. And I will also say our 10 regional directors in Alpha Kappa Alpha make it one of their daily practices to ensure that they have a working relationship with the colleges and universities that are within their region. They encourage the undergraduate chapters to be a part of the Pan-Hellenic Council and to be sure that any kind of hazing activity, hazing education is done in a collective manner, because it's not unique to one organization. And we have to pool our efforts with others on that campus to be sure that they know that, one, we can work together, we're all in it together, and we're here to prevent it from happening, not only within Alpha Kappa Alpha, but within other organizations as well.
Yeah. And I definitely have a few things, just kind of thinking about that I really want to tease out with Gina, given her legal background. Again, the wheels are really spinning here, but I want to round out on this conversation about young people, because my fear is if we don't get a handle on this, it's going to trickle down, if it hasn't already, to much younger audiences. Gina, what is Zeta doing in terms of partnering with colleges and universities as well?
We also have the webinars with our campus professionals in the fall. There are years when we do it in the fall and in the spring, at the top of the spring semester as well. But it's really about changing our perspective. And Charletta's said it as well. We are guests on the campus, and we can all be very chapter centric, particularly those of us that came in undergrad. I love my undergraduate chapter, but as guests on the campus at any given time, and it is happening, they can decide they don't want Greek life anymore. And it doesn't mean that something has to happen. We are viewed as a liability. And so when it comes to investigations, we can't be the enemy. We can't put up that blue wall. We need to partner with them on investigations. We need to know what we are willing to do to the chapter, whether it's suspension, that we are willing to revoke chapters, that we aren't, back in the day when there was an incident and you would just, to use old terms, take the line over. No, if people participate in a process that we told them that they are not to participate in, they can be barred from membership. And when I think that when you share with them the lengths that we are willing to go to stop this criminal behavior, they will partner with you and will say, can you do this investigation with us? They will pick up the phone and talk to you, perhaps before they will talk to the press. One of the things that we like to talk to the schools about is, if the issue is the alums of the chapter, we are willing to, when that chapter comes back after their discipline, to change the name of the chapter to something else, so that the alums who can be tied to that undergraduate chapter are no longer interested. So it's that constant communication. It's about being innovative. It's about collaborating with them. But until we change our perspective that no matter when we were founded on the campus of whatever in 19 whatever, they can make a decision that they no longer want Greek life. They can make it harder for Black Greek life. And they can also just decide, we don't want your organization on the campus any longer.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I know, I have to believe that being an attorney a corporate governance professional, as well as being your sorority's SME on risk management, Gina, there has to be some concern for you in terms of the legal impacts. Can you talk to us, maybe even describe some of the legal trends that impact how our organization should approach anti-hazing?
I think, Cami, it's a great topic, and it's something that we could probably talk at a whole nother hour about. But what I will say is this: our members are very good for going around saying that, there are anti-hazing laws in 44 states and the District of Columbia. But through our risk management training, when you take the test after our certification, we ask you and require you to download and upload your state's anti-hazing law. And that's because you need to know how the laws are evolving. And a lot of the laws are evolving so that it is coming after us, quite frankly. So when you look at the law in Louisiana, where they are saying that failure to report by officers and directors, and they specifically say, including any officer or director of the national or parent organization, that's a
Mhm.
crime. If you look at the law in Ohio, where they talk about administrators, again, alumni, volunteers, if we permit hazing, it is a crime. In my own state of New Jersey, they have amended the law to specifically include alumni. In Kentucky, they are now talking about visitors to the campus. Delaware and Alabama, if you look at the law, they talk about, hey, it's beyond the campus, and they're really reaching out beyond the campus. South Carolina, very subjective. Their law talks about behavior being shameful, abusive, tyrannical, insulting, or humiliating. So that's very subjective. And, as a lot of these laws are untested, if we have to go to trial and we have this bad reputation in the community, going to be very easy for a jury to believe our behavior is shameful or tyrannical. I think Marika or someone talked about consent not being required. Well, guess what? Actual harm is not even required. A lot of the laws are focusing on just the mere potential. In Florida and Arizona, there's that focus on mental health and dignity, on isolating new members. One of the laws actually speaks to whether or not you are going to maintain membership or leadership if you're treated poorly, that is hazing. And then, of course, in states like Texas, and I think a lot of our organizations, of course, under various laws are going this route where there's immunity for reporting. So, as you can tell, I keep up on these laws. There's federal legislation to normalize and equalize the definition of hazing. So, I think it's very important for us to continue to have risk management training, not only at our conferences, but virtually, so we can walk through all of these laws and let people know it's not just the physical, but the law is catching up with our behavior.
Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that information, Gina. And Pam, I know you as well have had experience with governance, having served as a board member and governance chair in your own organization. So I'd like to maybe give you an opportunity to weigh in here as well and share or build upon what Gina has shared in terms of legal trends that impact how our organizations approach anti-hazing.
Yes, thank you. Gina mentioned the whole idea of Ohio. And Ohio, where I reside, is supposedly one of the broadest and most restrictive of the new laws. And I'll just tell you a little bit about Ohio's law. It increases the penalties on the educational institution and the advisors. It also deals with a duty to report hazing immediately. Immediate.
Mhm.
So in one case where a young man drank too much and they called the hospital the day after, no, immediately. Also, they have learning modules from the state of Ohio for campuses, for campus collegiates to take before they become interested even in a sorority or fraternity. The other thing about Ohio is there are many of the hazing behaviors that are felonies. So this, for us, what does this say to us? It says that everybody is taking this more seriously, and we
Right.
have to do all we can to inform our folks in whatever state they're in what their laws are and make it clear that, as Gina said, they are coming after our behavior. And that's
Yeah.
what we have to make clear. And soon there will be more federal laws. And you know what happens with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know we're running pretty close to the top of the hour. I definitely want to make sure that we have time for a roundtable closing thought, but I just have to ask this burning question for me, and that is, what impact, if any, do you think hazing has on your organization's insurance coverage? And because we are running up on time, Charlotte, I'll ask you if you can, maybe share a little bit on that, and then Gina, if you can follow on to her response as well. Again, the impact of your insurance to the organization.
Okay, so let me just say that 100 years ago, there was no need for insurance for our organizations.
Mm.
Then we experienced, each one of us, game-changing incidents, which caused us to have insurance to cover who we are, to cover our existence. So I would say the flat answer is yes. It's just like your car insurance. If you encounter too many car accidents, your insurance will go up or they will drop you. It's like your homeowners. If you have too many incidents at home, you're going to lose your insurance. So we have to understand that the more we are exposed to hazing incidents, the more we put our organization at risk, not only through undergraduate hazing, but we have to start talking about graduate level hazing, because that's becoming and rearing its ugly head. Then we're going to put ourselves more at risk. So yes, it has impacted our insurance coverage, and it will continue to do so as long as we feed into the culture of hazing.
Absolutely. Gina.
Yeah, I definitely agree 100% with Charlotta. And just remind folks, it's not just about the coverage, but it's about the payouts and the legal fees. And what that does is it impacts our ability to find coverage, right? So you had a lot of accidents, you go to Allstate, they look you up, I'm not covering you. And so what's going to happen is our chapters are not going to be able to afford the insurance because the premiums are going to go up. And then that invoice that you get, you're either not going to be able to afford to pay it, or you'll pay it and it'll impact your programming, which is what we're all supposed to be about in terms of the organizations. So we really have to make sure that we understand the business impact of that, the day-to-day operations of our chapters.
Absolutely. And so there you have it, guys. There you have it, from the mouths of our own subject matter experts in their own rights. Listen, I have to put a pin right here because we are running out of time. We still have so much more to discuss on this topic, and I'm certain the audience is just as interested in this topic as I am. I'd like to maybe work on getting some more time on you all's calendars, ladies, because I believe we still have a lot more to talk about, as well as being able to work some time in to allow us to engage with the audience, because I'm sure they have questions for you all as well. Would you be open to that?
Absolutely.
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 Perfect. Perfect. All right, audience, there you have it. You hear them. So if you have something that you'd like to hear about from these ladies in our upcoming topics around hazing, pledging, the impacts, drop it in the chat on whichever platform you're on. We have a team monitoring the boxes, and we'll capture that information and make sure we get that on the agenda. Ladies, I have had so much fun and have enjoyed our conversation this evening. I really would like to give you all just a minute, if I can, for some final thoughts on this closing question. And that question is, and I thought about this because I heard you all talk about it early on. Do you believe that hazing is going to become a risk to the operations of our Black Greek letter sororities? And I'll start with you, Charlotta.
Yes. So hazing is not unique. If the audience hasn't heard anything else, it's not unique to one organization. It is pervasive in all of our organizations. And if we don't put a hold on it, if we don't grab it and start focusing on the main thing, let's make the main thing, which is service and sisterhood. And it's not strolling and it's not stepping. That's important, but the main thing is the main thing. So I want to say that if we don't understand who we are and whose we are, hazing is going to be here. And if we don't deal with hazing, hazing is going to eradicate us.
Thank you. Thank you, Marika.
Yes, as I started out, and I agree with all of us here, and I like the partnership because it's being transparent about what's going on collectively in all of our organizations, not just one focus on Sigma Gamma Rho. As I started 30 years ago, our organizations collectively decided that we brought an awareness to issues that we needed to eradicate. And yet here we are in 2023 dealing with those same issues, if not worse. At some point, we are going to have to decide if the risk is worth the reward. If we want to continue with our traditions, with our legacy, with our history, if we want to defame and put in the ground what the founders of each of our organizations have worked so hard in the times that they were in, which is also looking like what is going on in today as well. But we are going to have to decide individually, collectively, if the risk is worth the reward. And I love the sisterhood too much to see it go down. So I need us to get it together.
Yep, I agree. Pam, closing thoughts?
Oh, I totally agree with what's been said. And the other thing I would say is the act of hazing is at odds with who we are. And if we just remember who we are, founded on sisterhood, loving each other, lifting each other up, that is where we are, and that is who we are. In addition, hazing is at odds with the educational institutions. Students are there to learn, not to be harmed, but to learn. And so it's against everything that we are for. And so if we want to continue who we are on these campuses and also in our alumni chapters, we've got to go back to the basics. Sisterhood, founded on sisterhood principles. Let's continue back to loving on each other.
Gina, last thought.
Yeah, I have to say this. You may not like our current intake process, but I need you to decide that you love the organization more than you dislike the intake process. And I can't change your personal activity or your personal behavior, but what I am is a fierce advocate for Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated and the D9. And I will continue to do all that I can do to protect our organizations, whether or not individuals change their behavior.
Man, I love it. I love it. I love it. You know what they say, human behavior has the power to change lives. So we not only have to preach it, we have to practice it as well. And this conversation tonight, I think, was a really good start towards that end. So stay tuned, you all, for our next episode of First Things First, a conversation between first. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us.